Welcome once again to the Channel Zone. Today, as our special guest, we have Bill Hopkinson. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good day, good afternoon. Depends on when this is actually being viewed or listened to. Bill's got over 25 years experience in, I'll put it down as telecoms, unified comms, moving into IT. I'll leave you kind of explain the rest of it. But perhaps first, Bill, if I can, just a potted history of Intercity, because this is a company that I think most people will have heard of, but maybe won't have a specific impression as to where you are today. And there's been so much change over the years. So can you give a potted history?
It's a good question. Yeah, we've been going for about 40 years. In fact, we were there on the inception of Vodafone's and O2's, well, those days, BT Cellnet's B2B offering. You know, we were there, we were part of that, and it was a great time. Not that I was here, but I believe from all the stories we've been hearing, it was absolutely amazing, and that was great. And that was where we made our name for the next 20 years or so, 30 years. We just exclusively sold mobiles, and it worked really well for us, and helped us expand our business. We bought a business over in the Netherlands for a while, had that for a while, and really everything was going well. However, into the turn of the century, things on mobile started slowing down. The amount people paid for a mobile per month was vastly reducing, but yet they were getting more for it. If you're old like me, you'll remember the days when you had 10 texts a month and things like that. It was costing you 100 quid and 28 pence a minute and all that kind of thing. No, you don't have that anymore. Of course, you have infinite this and infinite that for pennies, effectively. So we had to change our model because it was harder to keep expanding within mobile because, you know, most people had one by then and they were looking to pay less. And of course, margins were getting squeezed. So we bought two businesses back in 2015, one called Emerger, which was a managed LAN business, and one called Gage, which was a hosted voice business. And the reason we did for that was to allow us to move into wider voice services and connectivity and into managed LAN. Now, when I say managed LAN, this is very old style. This is switches and routers and back-end stuff. It's not laptops. It's not PCs, it's not servers even, it's the pipes, if you will, that connect all that together. And that was brilliant, that was great, and it was marvellous. And in fact, the Emerger, the company that we bought, they were the ones that provided managed LAN services on behalf of Virgin Media. So if you were a large hospital or some kind of public sector and you took that service from Virgin, it was actually ourselves that delivered it. And that was fairly successful. And we moved on through from 2015, expanding. However, the life and technology has moved on quite a bit, and businesses more and more are looking for more of an end-to-end service provider. So now we have moved into cloud and security. We have our own data center here, and we've also moved into management of the data endpoints, so mobiles, excuse me, and laptops, etc. So we're now more of an end-to-end telecoms IT. Well, I think the preference now is called managed service provider. So we are.
I was waiting for it. MSP. Where's whatever happened to value-added reseller? That's what I can't work out. But I suppose the difference being, as I said, the value-added reseller was selling services to companies that were probably doing everything themselves with it. They had let's say the engineering and the strategy and so on. Whereas with an MSP, you're not only delivering the offering, but you're managing the entire delivery of the service as well.
Yeah, and it's very responsible. I don't know if you recently know, but the MSPs have been made part of the national critical infrastructure because we take everything from a business and we put it in our auspice and our control. Let's just say, for want of expression, we put everything in our private data center, but that business, effectively data-wise, no longer lives on site. It lives here. So if we were to go down and we'll lose all of our services, it isn't just this business that will be affected, but it's all of our customers. So you've got to make sure, as an MSP, and when you're choosing an MSP, that all of that resilience is built into the infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that element about the critical infrastructure, though, that change in definition. Very interesting. But as you said, you are critical to the people that you provide services to. So, yeah, absolutely makes sense. Now, we have, our paths have crossed numerous occasions in the dim and distant past. Originally, I'm thinking back to Pipex, perhaps in the early 2000s. Pipex, I regard as a kind of pioneering British ISP. They were there right at the very early days of internet service provision in the UK and probably elsewhere. Our paths then crossed again, I think, at Virgin Media. I delivered a lot of training, and I did some whiteboards. I don't know if you were there for the whiteboard training that we did there. And then also, I think the last time would have been at Vodafone. So can you, without going into the weeds too much, because you've got a 25-year plus history, what are the kind of key elements, your trajectory from, I would have thought, humble salesperson at some point to chief revenue officer? How do you get there?
Well, you see, in my case, it certainly wasn't a straight line. I started selling telephone systems up in Aberdeen back in the mid-90s. This is how old I am. We were taking advantage of a new technology called ISDN. I don't know if you've heard of it. At that time, and of course, now that's getting sunsetted in next year. So that's how I started, and it was the revolution then. You'll remember in the early noughties when everybody needed to get online. We need to get connectivity, and I wasn't that bright, but other people pointed out that this was the way to be into getting internet services, selling things like firewalls and other bits.
2 meg lease lines, if you remember, back in the day.
Yes, 2 meg lease lines for £25,000 a year. Thank you very much. Which nowadays you wouldn't pay 10 pence for, never mind £2,000.
It's unbelievable.
So it was. So, and that's how. So I've been very, very lucky. I've been involved in this as we move through for telecoms into IT, into the internet, then security, then cloud, which used to be called data center, and all of the technology that then brings with it over the last 25 years, as you say. I've been very lucky because there's always something different and changing in our world, and new customer new needs, new technology to help customers grow and be better. So for me, it was very much a sales guy for the first 10 years or so. I worked at Talk, got a bit of a boost, in my career at that point, ended up as head of regional sales. It was quite an interesting business back in 2008. Just a cheap minutes reseller at that point. They were called Opal. They bought a business that had an MPLS, and I went in to help them sell MPLS, and that helped my career, and ended up as head of regional sales at Talk Business. Came out of there after 5 or 6 years, and then I must have muddled around a little, and then ended up here in 2020. And this is a business that is going places. We're a very data-driven business, which is what I love. I think one of the things that we talk about is the whiteboard, is that in front of people selling. But the management of that process can be drilled down into data, and that's kind of where I feel my strengths lie, is analysing data, looking for weaknesses, looking for hurdles within that data, and then looking for practical solutions to it. CRO is relatively a new kind of title and role within businesses. I run the sales and the marketing department. I am not a marketeer in any shape or form. I lean very heavily on my marketing director to help me come up with ideas and how we do that. But the days, and this is one of the biggest transformations, when I was selling telephone systems back in 1996, if I came to you, Mark, to sell you telephones, that was me explaining you the technology changes.
Yes.
I let you know what technology had changed and what benefits they could be to your business, and you decided whether that was worth purchasing of. Now, you've done 70% of that purchasing decisions before you ever speak to me or any other supplier. So I am no longer educating you. The internet, suppliers, vendors, they're all educating you in what is new. You're merely trying to understand whether we're the right supplier to deliver that service or not what service you want. Sorry. So it's a very different kind of buying cycle as it was then, and marketing is a much more powerful and a much more important part of that, because how do you know to engage with us as a vendor if we're not already in a commercial relationship? When you look on the internet, how do we make sure that when you put certain parameters in, that we actually appear on your Google search or whomever?
So what do you look for in a salesperson then to be able to succeed in that data-driven environment that you talk about, but also to be able to have those conversations with customers? What do you look for?
It goes back weirdly to those sales skills I was taught back in 1996, and somebody called Mark tried to reiterate them. But it's about differentiating. You've got to make that solution. You've got to make and understand with the customer why your version is different and better than everybody else's. And the only way you can do that is by using open-ended questioning techniques, etc., is by gaining a better understanding of the next person of what that customer's needs are. Sometimes brilliantly, even if you can find a reason to say, well, actually, I understand where you went with that, but actually you need to look at this, not that, and these are the reasons why. And then if you're changing the customer's perception, they're going to start to believe that you know their business better than anybody else, and therefore you're the vendor that they should be trusting more than somebody else. Because the vast majority of what we sell can't see. You can't see, you can't physically touch. It's not like a car.
Correct.
It's not a driveway. It's perception. You're selling perception. So you've got to sell the perception that your version is better in some way. And that isn't just by saying it, it's actually proving it. If you really want to be old like me, feature, advantage, benefit, fab, all that traditional way of selling still as important, but in a slightly different, you've got to use it in a slightly different context.
As you said, you're typically selling the invisible a lot of the time, and that's where I again, the kind of, that's why a diagram or an illustration, as far as I'm concerned, can be a great advantage, can be a great sales aid in that situation. Any so of the salespeople that that succeed in with you at Intercity, any common factors amongst them? What do you think they're particularly good at that helps them succeed?
So I think there's two very different kind of sales people we have here. We have new logo business people who go out getting headhunting new customers, and we have account managers. Now, the actual technique of selling, I believe, doesn't change in either situation. You've got an existing customer who hopefully has a need you can meet, or you can meet a new customer who has a need you can meet. So that's the same. The difference is where relationship comes into account management. It's understanding that business and that customer to a deeper level, on a personal level, married, children, interests, who else in their business, having a full understanding and a matrix of relationships in that business, so you can start understanding it better and proactively come and say, you don't have one of these, but we found when other people like you have had one of these are the benefits I think you would benefit. And so you can do that proactive selling. So for me, that's a very relationship. Whilst in the other side of it, it's a very driven, it's a, ruthless qualification process. Is this going to be a waste of my time? It's a real arrogance they have to carry with them. They have to hide it, but they have to carry it with them and say, well, is this worth my time? And only those salespeople who are quite happy to see 10 potential customers and come out with only 2 opportunities. Those are the ones that really impress me, because these are the ones I can win. Yes, I potentially might win the other 8, but I'd rather make sure I win these 2 or 3 out of 10. But also understanding their closing ratio. So the common between the two is understanding your data. How many times do you need to go and speak to a customer to create an opportunities? How many of those opportunities do you win? What's your average time to winning opportunities? And what's your average value of opportunities? I know you're smiling. 4 years ago, I went to a sales, not refresh kind of conferencey thing, and guy talked up. He said, there are 5 stages of sales, and if you do a 10% improvement on each of the 5 stages, you have a 50% improvement in performance. I actually took a picture and sent it to my first ever sales manager from 1996. I know how things have changed, because that's exactly what you do. It's small incremental changes.
Incremental change, yeah.
So if you know those stages, you understand your ratios in between, and therefore the data, you can understand and apply practical solutions, for want of a better expression, to each of those, and that makes you that much better a salesperson. So I suppose the last piece, it's that analysing. Salespeople are not good at being self-critical. They're all about ego. They're all about
wishful thinking.
Yes,
magical thinking.
Yeah. So that, and that's one of your jobs as the leader, is to get them to do that, obviously. But those that naturally go, right, how do I improve? It's very, I think that's why a lot of sports people, not necessarily professional, but goodish sports people, do well at sales, because they have that self-improvement kind of drive.
Yes.
And the competitiveness. You want to be at the top of the sales.
Yeah.
You want to be the best salesperson in your company.
Where are you capturing the data? Is it Salesforce or something else?
No, we use CRO, so we use Dynamics. That's where we use ours, and then we've got Power BI on top of that for any other data sources that we have within it. So we use HubSpot and other bits and pieces. So it's at the minute, if I'm going to be brutally honest, it's not quite where it needs to be. We're just about to change all of our core systems, so it will be much more automated. So I'll be able to drill down on a salesperson's data set and then go. Yeah.
But if it is, as you said, if you link it to sports, is it not the case that sportsmen probably are now more analysed and data-driven than ever before, even on a rugby pitch? I remember reading the Clive Woodward autobiography, and the England manager at the time when England won I'm
Yes.
choking the World Cup,
I think
as it was.
I can't remember what Wales won, but yes, I think England have one. Yes.
But he mentioned the introduction of, I can't remember what the system is called, where they have basically a monitor, a little meter monitor on the players. But he was saying that during a team talk, he noticed, I think it might have been Neil Back, was well, all the team was standing. Neil Back was moving from side to side, and when they inquired further as to what he was doing, he was basically gaming the stats. He was getting an extra 5 meters in, another 5 meters, another. So when they did the numbers at the end of the day, the guy had basically outrun everybody else. So he said, if you can assess if the salespeople are open to having their performance opened up and assessed in such a way, if they can do it without becoming too closed down and hypersensitive, then I'm sure it must lead to tremendous improvement. So
it does for us, and one of the things I've drilled down into my leadership team is taking that. But you've got to add in the goal, right? So what is it you're doing it for? Sales is often not the great. People think we go and play golf, we have coffee, we take customers out for lunch, we drive flash cars, and magically we have this amazing life. It doesn't happen. I mean, the first guy that ever taught me how to do sales, he said, it doesn't. We don't work any less hard than any other professional. We're just not seen as a professional because too many people have maybe taken advantage of it in the past. So you get told no a lot. People look down the nose at you at parties because you're a sales guy. And if you're in telecoms or IT, they'll probably ask you for a free phone or to fix a laptop. So what is it? What is it getting you up in the morning and motivating you to do those things, to analyse, to get better? So we are always looking at the goal. I'm very important for me to have salespeople because I can't motivate anybody. You're either motivated or you're not, right? It's not for me to motivate. It's only for me to point out what you are doing is helping your path to what you're motivated to.
Yes.
And I don't mind admitting I've had a few times of lack of a motivation because when I first started selling, I had a young family. I wanted to get out of the place I lived. I wanted a better place, I wanted better things for my family. My daughter's now 30 and lives independently on her own with her husband. My son's just turned 26, lives independently up in Edinburgh with his friends. Now, I no longer have to provide for those people. So what motivates me? What moves me? So I've had to reassess that because a few years ago I went, they're gone now. I don't need that. I don't. So now I reassessed, and it's because I'm of a certain age. It's about retirement, right? So I've got to make sure. I want to make sure that I can retire relatively early, and when I do, I don't have to worry about putting the second bar onto the heater. So it's. It's probably a bad joke to have on a podcast.
Well, that's a piece of critical infrastructure in most people's homes, I think, is the central heating. Yeah, no, understood. But as you said, it does change. I think most people have, I'm a bit older than yourself, but so been through similar kind of life changes. You come out, you go through a busy period. As I'm assuming some of your salespeople are probably in the thick of it at the moment. Young children, all of the stuff that comes with that. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's kind of behind you, and there's I'd say you now have to create a new horizon in many respects. So, no, that makes a lot of sense. He said if you set the goal, but then the goal is the outcome that you want, but you then have to look at what are the individual processes and elements that I've got to do, the smaller steps. And it sounds to me like the approach you got at Intercity is helping, they say, the individuals to reach those outcome goals, but by helping them assess and understand the performance characteristics and the processes they need to go through. So great. Listen, let me pivot a little there. You've now got this, as you said, from what was, I'm assuming, back in 1982, before you were there, but a very small portfolio offering. Yes. At that time, there was a small range of services available in telecoms, whereas if you go to the Intercity website today, you'll be confronted by, I would say complete portfolio for a vast array of tech services that any organization, be it a small business or a large enterprise, would need. Two fronts here. I'm interested in, so you now have an awful lot of technology vendors that you work with in partnership. What do you look for from a tech partner, first of all? What are you looking for from the vendors?
Today, because we're slightly more mature, I think the decision process is different. Are you going to add something to our portfolio? Are you going to give us a competitive edge? One, if you can, brilliant. It's rare these days, got to be absolutely honest on that. But two, does it fill a hole in our portfolio? So, so for instance, we've recently taken on a new service from our friends at Checkpoint around endpoint detection and endpoint protection. So that was something we were a little weak in, we weren't defined in. So we've taken their point, their service on, and it's a what do you call it, a monthly recurring revenue. So that works really well for us. Checkpoint are a well established, so we're also looking for that. We don't tend to take on bleeding or leading edge suppliers. It's not really where we've found success with our customers. We're looking for something that adds to our portfolio, but it's provided by somebody we know or feel we can depend upon.
Super.
Because we need to have the same belief in that message when we're going to our customers. We don't want to be left high and dry if our supplier's gone pop and a customer's got a service that no longer works.
So you've got the tech partners, but also, again, from looking at the website, you've also got a partner program. So you sell both direct and indirect, as I would have called it before. So you've got salespeople out there engaging with customers, delivering and serving their needs, but you also do have a channel partner. So what do you look for from a channel partner, for instance?
Well, there's twofold. So we work with some very large partners. I already mentioned Virgin. There are a couple of other tier one techs and technology businesses that we work with. They have very, very, as they have to have, and I'm not criticising them in any shape or form, they deliver lots and lots of services to lots of customers. They have to have very strict product sets and services sets. Customers don't always fit within those sets,
right.
And the odd customer will fall down through the gap. So we will help those guys provide the gap filler, if you will. Whether that be people on site, we quite often do what we call campus support, where we provide techies for 2-3 days a week at specific locations, or permanently for that matter.
So, Bill, that's Virgin Media as a channel partner of yours. They sell your services. Do they also provide services to you as well? I would have thought they might be a...
No. So weirdly, no, we don't have a bi-directional relationship. Well. They just sell us. There is a little bit of history behind that, which I'm not 100% sure of. But we've always used other connectivity partners. We resell Virgin, as in we're an O2 reseller now.
Right, on the mobile side.
On the mobile side, but we don't really sell their network, no. So I think it was... I don't know. I'll be guessing, to be bluntly honest. My own assessment is they didn't want us competing for the same kind of contracts they do. So we tend to be managed LAN as part of a managed WAN contract.
Yes.
It made sense for us as a standalone, not bidding with their connectivity and exactly the same service on the LAN. So I think that was a gentleman's agreement.
It makes an awful lot of sense, to be honest with you, because otherwise you're just going to get a whole load of channel conflict where you're going to be fighting over, that's my customer, no, it's our customer.
Well, we could be a massive Cisco reseller, and we're not. And the reason we're not is because the vast majority of the stuff we manage on Virgin's behalf is Cisco. So we don't want that competitiveness. So we don't do Cisco reselling. That's a great example. Sorry.
Right. Gotcha. So looking forwards, as I said, with your... if you can put some kind of visionary goggles on here, think about the future for your customers out there. What excites you in the tech arena at the moment? What products and services do you think are being cooked up at the moment, or currently being introduced into the market, that you think have got real value, can add value to customers?
I think AI is obviously it's a buzzword, Gen AI and generative. AI is a great tool, but it's a very dangerous tool, right? And very good examples is Microsoft's Copilot. Everybody's going, oh yeah, we'll have Copilot. Well, Copilot, in very simple terms, you're effectively saying, go and have a look at all my data and then assess when I'm doing things. Brilliant. If it's just me and you in an office looking at that, as I don't know, I'm the CRO and you're the MD, Mark, brilliant. We can find some stuff we can do and we can change and we can do this, that and the other. But Copilot needs to be told what's private and what's public. And if you don't have the correct data labelled in the correct way, you could be using and transporting private data. What you don't want is somebody, I don't know, one of my employees going, what's Bill's basic salary? And buff, my latest pay slip comes up. Now, that won't happen, obviously, but it potentially in businesses, you've got those kind of issues. You know, if you're going through M&A, are we acquiring somebody? Oh, yes, you're acquiring X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Again, don't necessarily want that going through to everybody. So AI is brilliant, but it brings its own security risk. So it will help businesses run better, more efficiently. We have to remember, it doesn't innovate. It just extrapolates trends, right? As a great way of doing this is, you could ask it to make the Mona Lisa more perfect, but would it make it better? It might discover that their eyes are slightly different size and they're slightly misaligned and get all that perfect. But will the picture at the end of it look any better? It'll be more perfect, but would it be any better? And that's the thing we've got to remember with AI. It only extrapolates existing trends. It doesn't innovate. So we need to keep that side and understand that we are the ones that innovate. And secondly, you've got security issues. AI is going to be used by horrible people to attack you and your organization. Anybody feels that's not going to happen, you're wrong. It's like saying the sun's not going to come up tomorrow. It's really that obvious. If you look at it right now, cyber attacks is the third largest economy in the world, and it's growing. Right? These companies have HR departments, and they're attacking people's data. Dark web, all these kind of.
Sorry, are you saying that this cyber criminals have HR departments?
Yes, because they're set up in business in safe countries. But the attack, right, it can be anywhere. They're huge. We're not measuring it in a few million it's trillions of dollars worldwide.
It's often presented though in marketing, isn't it? It's often some guy in a hoodie, some soul kind of monster drinking guy in a hoodie in a dark room with a laptop. That's how they market it. But what you're saying it's actually is on a business park in I don't know, in some country, probably in a very nice area, maybe on the outside made to look and feel like a respectable business, but inside there's all sorts of nefarious.
Yeah, exactly that. It's exactly that. It's an industrial scale and will be, and AI will only increase that. AI will look at your emails, the publicly available emails that you send and have sent and send more to, and then write emails in the way Mark
just like you.
And so when I receive the email, and I don't know, my nickname at school used to be Hoppy, and let's say you call me Hoppy, and I go, hey up Hoppy, it's Mark, I'm much more likely to respond and not think about what you're asking me for, because it looks like an email you sent me. The email address looks like your email address, and you've got man in the middle attacks and all those kind of weird and wonderful stuff. And in the end, the single biggest failure in any security is people, right? So
correct.
So one of the things we talk about in cyber isn't, have this technology, have that technology, we do, we've got it. I'm not arguing that point, but we do something called a CAF without trying to sell on this. And that is about, what is your culture? Is your culture cybersecurity first, or is it somewhere down my to-do list? And the only analogy I can run is back in the early 90s, late 80s, I worked on building sites. And in those days, health and safety was something people hated. I remember the cover was, if you had a harness for working at site, on site, it was up to the person working at height whether they wanted to use it or not.
Right.
Very much if you go to a building site now, and I was on one recently visiting a customer site, it's not like you have defined walkways. Anybody seen any more than about a metre off the ground without a safety harness off is sacked immediately. It is a much, much more important, because people have learned how important it is.
Right.
And I believe that's what we need to go through from cyber. People need to understand that cybersecurity is the single most important thing. We and I won't go into it now, but we've got one customer who went bust last year, and a large part of that was because they got cyber attacked and they got ransomware. They were PE backed. The PE went, I'm not giving you money to pay somebody because you haven't put the right security in. They went pop, and 80 people lost their jobs, right? And that is because somebody got in somewhere. And these are real life examples, and that one was actually on the BBC, so I know I can talk about it. But it's that we've got to be aware as organisations. All this technology is brilliant, but it brings with it an inherent risk, and we've got to make sure we balance the two together
and get the right culture. So I'm going to ask there on this one, we'll take that culture and just bring it back to the sales organisation. I said you've got over a quarter of a century. I don't know if that makes it sound more, but a quarter of a century experience.
Half a century.
A lot of tech companies out there. What's the best sales culture you've ever seen or experienced?
Shockingly, Mark, I'm going to say the one that I'm responsible for presently at Intercity, and the reason why it's not.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. It's not me. It's my leadership team. I talked about that earlier, about the analysis of data and picking people's goals. We have grown an awful lot. We've gone through an acceleration growth period over the last 2 to 3 years. That is obviously down to sales, right? You'd have to go to Harvard to work that out. We have managed to grow So we're getting our guys to work hard, we pay them particularly well, and we tie everything in with their own personal goals. We've created a marketing function that helps and supports and produces leads and awareness in the marketplace of who we are. So for me, that's why it's a good one. We've got a common goal, common understanding of where we need to be. We all know where the business, and we've got a plan to get to in 2030. We all understand what that plan is, and we all understand our part in it. And we all understand that we can make a difference, both to the business and to ourselves personally, through our careers, earnings, or whatever it is your goal is, and being part of that journey. And that's why I believe that the sales culture is very good, and why we're growing, why we're setting new records. And go throw it out there. Fourth straight year record last year, because it's because we all understand our part in that, right? We all understand, and we're very, again, going back to that sporting analogy. When I used to play rugby many years ago, the nastiest things ever said to me on a rugby pitch were by my own players. Very, very rarely by an opposition person. And that's because if you didn't do the right thing, you were letting your team down, and they had the right to vent their frustration. I think if we go to the Wales one, Bigger got in trouble, didn't he, in the World Cup for having to go at North for not kicking it out when he should have done. But yeah, he was probably harsher than anybody's ever been to North on the opposition. We're not harsh like that, but we are open and understanding. So if somebody's not doing what they need to do.
It's a team as well, though. That sounds like. But again, sales culture, a lot of the time, maybe I'm mistaken here, but a lot of the time it's very individualistic.
Oh, yes.
It's kind of dog eat dog. But what you're talking about there is more of a team culture, as I said, where everybody's kind of watching everybody else just to make sure that we're all lifting our game together.
Absolutely, because nobody's. Yes, you want your individual. I used to say this. I think the first time I met you, sales team was an oxymoron, right? It's a bunch of individuals trying to be better than each other. It's not really a team, but we have a bit of that right now. But we all understand that somebody failing in the team for wanting being given some advice, for being shown how to do something, is not good for us as a business. It just isn't, and that's one of the reasons why, I feel we've moved to having the odd person over target every year to having a third of the sales function over their personal targets in a year, because they all want to do better. They all want to pull each other up, and then you get the hyper competitiveness at the top. So last year, yes, we had a record year, but the individual at the top didn't quite beat the previous individual record sales from the year before, and he was genuinely disappointed. I'm like, you can't be disappointed. You missed it by. So that's his new goal this year. And then the person that actually holds that record wants to get back to first and get above them this year. And it's all of that healthy competition, healthy kind of support that you get,
Brilliant.
That openness to critical feedback and openness to improve. I don't want to be a hire fire culture. I would much rather get somebody, and this is genuine, I'd rather have somebody I know does 60-80% of their target because they're working the nuts off, but they're not that good, but they genuinely want to get there and have reasons to do it, than somebody who come in who could do 100% but doesn't put any effort in, blah, 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 blah. So I want those good, solid performers as well as those high-performing ones. And I know that if we create that kind of where we don't try and create a cutthroat environment where it's either you're a winner or a loser, I'm not interested in that. How do we support and how do we move forward as a team and as a business?
Well, Bill, that's fantastic. It sounds pretty amazing there. It sounds like you're doing a great job. So well done to you and the team. I think we'll call it a day there. I think we've covered an awful lot of ground. But I probably will want to come back to you again at some point in the future and dig more down into your understanding or the analysis of the data. I'm very interested in that element, but we could probably just focus on that for half an hour on a future episode. So if I can, we'll put a placeholder in the diary at some point in the not too distant future for that. Thanks ever so much for your time, Bill. Good luck to you and the team at Intercity. Thanks for joining us, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Mark, and same to you. Thank you for the invitation.